update. Remember the story we brought you about a bigoted neighbor, white male, threatening violence against another neighbor. And that neighbor happened to be, well, let's just say a minor. According to the latest, prosecutors will not pursue charges. Put it up full mass. Remember that guy? State attorneys have decided not to prosecute a Florida man who fantasized about shooting a black child on social media after she knocked on his door to sell toys and candy. The girl's mother states, beyond Shabazz told Atlanta Black Star that prosecutors will not pursue charges against Mr. Tyler Chambers, a Tampa-area homeowner who went viral earlier this year after he decided to post a doorbell camera image of a 9-year-old black girl with the caption, quote, "You're lucky we weren't home to shoot your dumb B word." Chambers shared the post in a community group, and it was screenshotted and reshared all over social media, quickly drawing backlash. Many people condemned the violent threats Chambers aimed at the child and pointed to the racist overtones in his language. Now, to remind you of the scenario, the child was then blamed by Mr. Chambers for setting him up to be robbed. That was his initial response. Now, keep in mind, the group chat that he shared this in, obviously everyone there did not share his racist sentiment and decided to provide the evidence required in order to bring this to the forefront. So before deactivating his account entirely, Mr. Chambers deleted his post and later stated his case, alleging the girl who had gone to the home with her 11-year-old cousin and was recorded saying, quote, "I would just like to let you know that you are a blank, blank, blank was acting as a decoy for an attempted break-in at his home without sharing evidence to support the accusation." So now he has blamed children for threatening to rob him by way of creating a decoy with an 11-year-old and candy. Quote, "I saw that on my camera and have a wife and 7-month-old at home, which I will protect as you would," he says. "I was hot when I posted it, which is why I deleted it right away. I could have handled it a lot different," Chambers wrote, adding he wanted to locate the girl's parents to apologize. Shabazz said she had been waiting for weeks to hear from the state attorney's office about the status of a potential criminal case against Mr. Chambers, and finally heard back this week with the reason they decided not to move forward. To analyze his apology is quite telling. He says, I was protecting my 7-year-old and my wife from the other minors who were obviously there to rob me. And that's what I thought. But I am the one also who deleted the message, and I'm the one looking for the parent to apologize. It's almost like saying, yeah, America brought slavery, but America ended slavery as well. Why doesn't America get credit for that? There's more. Quote, "They said he stated he was not home, so they couldn't prove he had true intentions of hurting her." That is from the state's attorney's office, according to Ms. Shabazz. Quote, "I feel that their actions were made only to avoid prosecuting Mr. Chambers. They worked very hard to find every reason not to file charges against him. It seems as if they were on his side," she says. Quote, "I am not okay with their decision, but they claim that this decision was made according to the law. So they have closed the case pertaining to Mr. Chambers. Remember the context, all right? So the state attorney is arguing, according to Ms. Shabazz, that the reason these actions are not criminal in nature is because he was not at home. What does proximity have to do with the threat? Well, nothing. There's no statutory proximity required. I looked it up. It doesn't exist. As a matter of fact, if you simply have the means, usually a threat and means to carry out the threat does not require that you have the means at the moment to carry out the threat. That would mean that if somebody threatens you on the phone, none of that could ever be a charge. It's not a crime, right? Because there's no proximity. You can't do it through the phone. But we know that's ridiculous. There's more. Shabazz has indicated that she and her attorneys plan to sue Mr. Chambers. After his home address was doxed, authorities told Shabazz that he and his family have temporarily moved out of their home. Mr. Shabazz said the family has since moved back in. Shabazz and Chambers became neighbors after she moved her family to the Riverview area of Tampa a few years ago. Now, she says she's in the process of moving out of, quote, this racist neighborhood for the sake of my kids' future. You're making the right decision, madam. And to your attorneys, I'm sure they are well aware of the statute that protects homeowners or those who are even renting a property from discrimination or retaliation against neighbors inside of that community. It falls under a very precise civil statute that can be either civilly prosecuted or criminally prosecuted, depending on the aggression or the aggressor. All right, Yasmin, thoughts here?
Yeah, I think I remember I was on the show the last time you covered this, so it is interesting to see the update. Unfortunately, these stories are all too common these days, and it all comes down to the fact that we just do not trust each other, not even our neighbors. But sometimes our neighbors are racist, so maybe that's part of the reason why we don't want to interact with them. We don't even know our neighbors anymore, though, so it's hard for us to say. And of course, since we don't know the people who live around us, we are skeptical whenever anyone turns up at our doors. And today, the culture is not such that neighbors even ring each other's doorbells at all. So whenever my doorbell rings now, I don't even stop what I'm doing and get up because it's usually just a solicitor. And, I get it. The world has made it very difficult to trust people these days. It's designed to separate us from one another. And scams are all over the place. We can't afford to not be vigilant. We're all very familiar with things like we get text messages all day. We can't click on a link. We can't respond to anything because everyone's out there trying to get us. But I have to believe that the community is the answer to all of that. If we did know the people who are living around us, we would know this is someone who lives here. At the very least, this person is not a threat to me. So we can interact with people in a much better way. But what's ironic is that this man who responded this way to a little girl, he's the one who's actually threatening. He's actually the one in the neighborhood to avoid and to maybe not be friends with, because we all know what kind of behavior he is now capable of. We can see the way that he disrespected and treats a child. And then we saw the way that he tried to justify all of his actions, Like, he's trying to act now like he's being the bigger person and like he's taking responsibility for his actions. But his words and actions were abhorrent, and they were dangerous and they were threatening. And he's clearly trying to avoid any further consequences for his own actions. And I'm not just talking about his behavior during the incident. I'm also talking about the fact that he told on himself, right? He's the one who initially posted the incident on social media and then it went viral. It would not have gone anywhere if he hadn't first posted it, if he hadn't felt so justified in his response that he said, look at this, and not just justified in the response, but he wasn't embarrassed about the way that he was speaking to and about a child. And I don't know who does something like that. It would be lovely if there was more retribution for this man. I also don't love the fact that, these people now have to leave their neighborhood because of this man who lives near them because they feel threatened. That is incredibly disruptive to people, to their lives, to their families, to their schools. Like, these kids have to change schools. It's a whole thing because this man who is a white man who normally you wouldn't even think twice if you walk down the street to looking at him, but he is a threat and he is a danger to them, and now they have to upend their entire lives because of him.
Yeah. And what adult would assume that two children knocking on their door with candy and toys
Mhm.
is there to set them up for robbery? If two white children are knocking on my door and I see them through my door camera, um, through my doorbell camera, I would not assume that they are there to do anything mischievous. So this is something that obviously is a bias inside of his mind.